agree with you, of the underlying principles of consciousness.
When I talk about consciousness here, I'm talking about experience and feeling.
Richness of their lives, of each individual's life, comes from their individual experience.
Is to be in the presence of anything whatsoever, is to be conscious.
To smell the jasmine, to feel pain, and so on.
That consciousness is experience.
Is the way mind talks to itself.
It's a foundation to all the higher purposes, all the higher benefit, including, enlightenment.
Эта конференция, я уверена, она имеет цивилизационное значение, потому что вопросы, которые на ней обсуждаются, носят экзистенциальный характер. Мы сейчас входим в эру, в которой, возможно, появились типы сознания, о которых никто никогда не говорил, или их не было вообще, если речь идет об искусственном интеллекте.
When I talk about consciousness here, I'm talking about experience and feeling. So I think experience and feelings are states such that there's inherently something it's subjectively like to undergo them. So one classic example is the feeling of pain.
It is quite a different way of, to understand the emotion from the Buddhist perspective and the scientific perspective. Buddhist perspective is very much based on logic that animal also have the similar kind of emotion that we human beings have. The emotions of liking, happiness, and aversion to suffering.
The mental states which we discover when we look into our mind are very different in their character. And there's a particular class of states which I call phenomenally conscious states, sensations, which have very different quality to any of the other mental states which I discover when I look into my own mind, and I can confirm by talking to you that you also understand this distinction.
Fascinating, wonderful talk as always. I'm interested in this relationship between cognitive and consciousness and sensation that you're drawing. And I'm curious about how...
We all have a subjective point of view on the world and on our own bodies. But I don't think humans are the only beings in the world that have that. We can ask these questions about other animals as well. We can ask which other animals have subjective points of view on the world and on their own body, including perhaps experiences of pain, pleasure, joy, anxiety, comfort, discomfort.
Наука – это постоянное взаимодействие с неизвестным. Проблема сознания – фундаментальная проблема. У нее нет и не может быть решений. Ждать, пока появится теория, бессмысленно. Мы должны эти вопросы решать прямо сейчас. Ведь дело же не только в животных, а дело в людях, которые находятся в измененных состояниях. С поражением мозга, с параличом и так далее. Они не могут ждать, пока мы разберемся и решим все вопросы сознания.
What is life? It's simple. It's not simple. It requires metabolism. It requires closure. It requires information. Some kind that carries information. We will not be there. It will not persist. I'm looking at it from an evolutionary point of view. And from an evolutionary point of view, I want to understand how something like this was made possible during the history of life.
I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with a monkey who had visual cortex at the back of her brain removed. And when I first met her, she was blind. But over several years, I persuaded her that she could see. And so this relationship developed, and I spent 7 years studying this one animal. And it was astonishingly productive in terms of phenomena and ideas, because blind sight, this monkey, turned out to have an ability to see which she didn't know about. She was unaware of her own capacity to use her eyes again. And so this was a kind of, almost like a kind of biblical miracle. over the years, she recovered her sight, and I was just an observer. I didn't do very much.
I think there's a much greater emphasis now on the ethics of these experiments to ensure animals aren't suffering unnecessarily, that experiments that are done have a clear scientific purpose, and are also just methodologically and statistically sound. There's a much greater awareness of the dangers of anthropomorphism or behaviorism in interpreting these results.
Study of animal competence is, of course, not easy. Some confusion in the study. So the objective is to find or create new essential approach. Looking forward.
My initial interest was piqued by some experiments in psychology, the best explanation of which seemed to me to be that, in fact, creatures as far removed from us as insects, specifically bees, could feel anxiety. Bees might have a sense of play. Bees might sort of enjoy, have a feeling of pleasure as they do something for which there is absolutely no reward, just as children do, for example. And that young bees, for example, have a greater sense of play than older bees. And that means that we should take seriously ethical questions which have not been taken seriously in the past.
We are working our way towards the science, and these kind of conferences are exactly what we need to get to that place. Right now, we are searching. Right now, we are groping for basic principles. We disagree on some basic principles, but we are finding some common grounds. Consciousness in machines can help us study human and animal consciousness. Why? Because it forces us to specify what we are looking for.
You know, I've got a son who's 10. I imagine by the time he's 16, maybe his first girlfriend will be an AI girlfriend and he'll think she's conscious. And I think consciousness science isn't yet prepared for how this is going to change the debate.
What does it take for us to see consciousness in another being? And of course it's kind of straightforward in other human beings, but it's much less straightforward in animals. And so I've always been interested in trying to understand what this whole, this whole space of possibilities is like, that includes ourselves, includes other animals, especially exotic animals like the octopus, say, and possibly, life as it may be on other planets. So I'd like to understand the nature of cognition and consciousness in a way that embraces that whole space of possibilities.
Выработалась в эволюции некоторая функция мозга, которую можно назвать внутренним ментальным пространством, в которое мы помещаем весь мир. Это означает, что прежде чем понять, как работать с этим миром, мы его должны создать в голове. И там это будет некая модель вот этого внешнего мира. Эволюционные механизмы привели к тому, что такой способ представления внешней реальности внутри головы появился. И вот я бы дал бы ему название, этому ментальному пространству, ум.
Что память – это и есть путь в будущее. Если мы что-то помним, значит в дальнейшем мы отреагируем иначе. И поэтому тут объединяется в один момент прошлое, настоящее и будущее.
Love, compassion, kindness, respect, understanding, forgiveness, is the key thing in reality to establish world peace. Without that, how much lecture the leaders would give, the harmonious environment among all living creatures, they won't be able to establish world peace legitimately.
У всех крупных лабораторий, которые работают, всегда есть свой трек, и выйти из него – это принципиально важно. Я бы пожелал каждому из участников выйти из своего трека и оглянуться вокруг.
How little we know about each other field, and that tells how it is important for us to continue these conferences, to meet more often together, to complement each other's expertise in the field of psychology, of animal behavior, field studies, theory-based approaches. We definitely need to learn much more from each other and each of the professions in this field.
Хотелось бы это задержать. Это впечатление, оно не должно раствориться просто в жизни, в которой мы живем. Вот мы все начнем улетать там завтра утром, кто в какую часть этой планеты. Вот пока летим, надо как-то это закрепить. Нужно продолжать об этом думать, чтобы оно не ускользнуло.